My stepmother, she tried to ruin my entire wedding. Why would she do that? Well, she comes from a very conservative religious family, and she's mad that I'm lesbian. I'm getting married to the girl of my dreams, and my father could not be happier. So, my father came out of the blue and said, "You know what, honey? I'm going to pay for your wedding venue as a gift for your wedding." Well, I was so happy I picked my dream venue. Little did I know, my stepmother had a plan to absolutely ruin it. She went behind my father's back and made plans on the exact same day that I was supposed to have the wedding at the exact same venue. And get this, she told my father, "Don't worry, honey, I'll take care of your daughter's venue. You just go and play golf with your buddies." Well, she used my father's credit card to book a luncheon with her and her friends, and all of my guests were going to show up to an empty venue because it was booked for 5 people. But guess what? I found out before she could do this, and you know what I did? I never thought I would have my own story to share here, but life is full of surprises. I just need to vent out my frustration and anger. I know it's a bit long, but believe me, it's definitely worth the read, especially if you're dealing with an evil stepmother. Let me give you a little bit of context. I'm 24 and female and have been engaged to my partner Naomi, who's 28 female, for over a year now. I'm openly lesbian and have always been proud of my sexuality. When I came out after high school, my father was my biggest supporter. However, my stepmother, Sarah, who's been married to my father since I was 13, was not as supportive. You see, my stepmother grew up in a very strict religious household, and it's against homosexuality. So I've always felt that she was ashamed of me. She's never said that she's ashamed of me right out, but I can tell that she is, just by the way she treats me and Naomi in public. And, well, my mother passed away when I was a baby, so Sarah's the only mother figure I've ever known, which is why I've always wanted a close relationship with her. Anyways, let me not bore you guys with my mommy issues. I and Naomi were on our way to visit my father and Sarah for lunch. It's a family tradition that we have lunch together at least once a month. We arrive at their place and find Sarah in the kitchen cooking. We greet both of them before taking our seats at the dinner table. My father and Naomi start talking about some basketball game that was played yesterday. I'm not really into sports, but Naomi is a huge sports head, which makes her the perfect daughter-in-law in my father's eyes. Sarah eventually finishes up cooking, and I prepare the table. She puts all the food on the table, and I have to admit, it smells delicious. One thing about Sarah is, oh boy, she can cook. We say grace and then dig into our meal. My father then asks us, "How's wedding planning going?" And I tell him that it's been rather slow, since me and Naomi both have very busy schedules, you know. But we've decided that we want to have our wedding out of state, so that Naomi's parents can also attend. Under her breath, Sarah whispers, "Why are we always accommodating Naomi's family?" Naomi rolls her eyes while I continue telling my father about our wedding plans. And okay, here's the thing. Naomi grew up in a single-parent household. However, her grandmother played a huge role in raising her, but she's old and fragile now. So to make things easier for her, we decided to have our wedding in the state where both Naomi's grandmother and mother live. We finish our meal and then have our dessert, which is Sarah's famous blueberry pie. While we eat, my father tells me that we would love to pay for our wedding venue as his wedding gift, and we're so happy. I ask him if he really means that, and he just nods his head with a huge grin on his face. I immediately get out of my seat to hug him, and Naomi simply thanks him, but I can see the excitement in her eyes. He tells me that I am his only child, and he wants to go all out for our wedding, so whatever financial assistance we need, we should not hesitate to ask. And as I'm about to thank him, Sarah cuts him off by asking my father if he'll be able to afford the venue. I butt in and say that we won't choose anything expensive and that we don't mind sticking to a certain price range. My father shakes his head and says that nothing is too expensive for his little girl. Well, I smile at him, and in the corner of my eye, I notice that Sarah's frowning. Sarah reminds my father that I'm no longer a little girl if I'm ready to get married, and my father just ignores her comment altogether. Me and Naomi are on our way to our apartment. She asked me if I noticed that Sarah was annoyed that my father offered to pay for our wedding venue, and I just shrug my shoulders and tell her that Sarah has always been like that. Naomi shakes her head and mentions that she thinks Sarah's jealous of the relationship I have with my father. I tell her that it is absolute nonsense. I mean, what is there to be jealous of? A few days later, I get a surprise visit from Sarah at my home. Sarah never comes to my house without my father, so I was taken aback when I opened the front door and found her there with a huge smile upon her face. As she takes a seat on the couch, I offer her a cup of coffee, and she politely declines it, so I sit down next to her, and she proceeds to tell me that she wants to help me with the wedding planning. Oh, I gasp in shock, and she notices how shocked I am, and she chuckles a little bit and explains that she's not been acting like a real mother figure to me, and she would like to change that. She apologizes for her behavior at the lunch and says it's just hard to accept that I'm growing up. Wow, I honestly have never seen this side of Sarah, and I'm starting to see her in a completely new light. She continues to tell me that she really wants to help and be part of this process, and she's always seen me as her daughter, especially because she does not have children of her own. I had always wondered why Sarah did not have any children and why she and my father never had kids of their own, until my father explained to me that when he and Sarah first started dating, she made it crystal clear that she did not want to have any children. So her telling me that she sees me as her own, well, that's really touching because we've never been that close. She takes out her phone and tells me that she's been looking at wedding venues in Miami, since that's where we'll be having our wedding, you know. She shows me a couple of screenshots that she's taken of different venues, and it warms my heart to know that she genuinely wants to help out. I tell her to send me the screenshots and I'll look over the places with Naomi. She frowns when I mention Naomi's name, but quickly smiles when she sees that I'm looking at her. As soon as Naomi gets home, I tell her about Sarah's visit, and she laughs when I tell her that Sarah wants to help out with the planning. She tells me that she does not trust Sarah. I tell her that we need to give Sarah a fair chance. I add that it actually looks like she's turning a new leaf and wants to be there for us. She warns me that I should just be careful around Sarah because she does not want to see me get hurt. So, I tell her to stop overthinking. I know Sarah has not exactly been the best stepmother, but at least she's trying, and that's better than nothing. A week passes by, and I've been busy with wedding planning. Sarah has not contacted me since the day she popped by, and me and Naomi are both at home busy looking through venue catalogs since Sarah has not gotten back to us. Naomi's busy telling me that Sarah clearly did not mean what she said because she has not helped me at all. There is a knock at the door. I open it and Sarah comes rushing in with a huge smile on her face. She is holding a few documents in her hand, and she greets us and takes a seat on the couch. I ask her why is she so excited, and she proceeds to put the documents on the table. She tells us that my dad wanted to tell us the good news over the phone, but she thought and felt the surprise would be better told in person. Me and Naomi look at each other in confusion. She then tells us to look at the pamphlet, and I pick it up and look through it. The pamphlet is advertising a beautiful wedding venue that me and Naomi would definitely love. So I tell Sarah that this venue looks beautiful, but it must cost a fortune and it'll probably be booked up. She frantically shakes hers and exclaims that my father had booked this venue for our wedding day. She shows a receipt that has the proof of payment and a printed out email from the place confirming the booking. Filled with excitement, I hug Sarah and thank her for finding us such a beautiful venue for such a special day. She tells me that it's the least that she could do as a mother. Her calling herself my mother really touched my heart because she's never said that much before. I notice that Naomi is staring at Sarah and not even thanking her. As Sarah's picking up the documents, I nudge Naomi and whisper that she has to say thank you. She rolls her eyes and then she puts on a fake smile and she tells Sarah that it was very sweet of her to do this. Sarah then hugs Naomi and tells her that she can't wait for our special day. I ask Sarah if she can leave the receipt in the document email, just in case we need to contact the venue, and she tells us that we shouldn't worry about these things. She'll make sure that everything is in order at the venue. She also tells us that she has an old family friend that lives close by to the venue. She also says that if we ever want or need pictures of the venue, she can simply ask her friend to go there. Just snap a few pictures and then send them to us, and I tell Sarah that's perfect and that we really appreciate her doing all this for us. Our wedding day is going to be absolutely beautiful and magic. A few weeks have passed and our wedding's taking place this Saturday. Me and Naomi have decided that we're going to arrive a week earlier just to make sure that everything goes smoothly regarding the decorations, cake, etc., and also to finally see our wedding venue. We arrive in Miami and the weather's perfect. We had made sure to check the weather forecast in advance, but luckily we're having an indoor wedding, so even if it does rain on our wedding, we'll at least be indoors. What's up, everybody? Mr. Reddito here. Today's story has 3 updates, and we're going to just jump into update number 1. If you guys are not subscribed to the channel, take a second, hit that subscribe button, and here's your update. I am fuming with so much anger and hurt right now. It is true when they say that the ones that hurt you the most are the ones closest to you. Me and Naomi had decided to go check out the venues first thing in the morning so that we could have an idea of how we would like everything to be set up and decorated. We arrive at the venue and the manager greets us. I tell the manager that we had made a booking for this venue for our wedding on Saturday. So, the manager looks at us confused and tells us that he had not seen any bookings for a wedding this week in their booking journal. Naomi tells him, no, that's impossible because my father had received an email from them, and he tells us to follow him to his desk, and he types something into the computer and just shakes his head. He turns the screen around so that it's facing us and shows us that there's no wedding booked here for this week. I notice that on the date of our wedding, there's a tea party luncheon scheduled, and I proceed to ask the manager if David could have maybe booked or had a payment or something. He looks through his computer and tells us that David Cole did make a full payment for the venue for this Saturday. However, it was not for a wedding but a luncheon for Miss Sarah Cole. Well, my body freezes and I get chills. Naomi asks him to please repeat that, and he says that the luncheon is for Miss Sarah Cole, but the payment was made by David. I can't believe what I'm hearing right now. I ask him if we can't book the venue for Saturday, and he tells us that it would be unprofessional for him to cancel and just give back a fully paid booking just for us to book it, and that it would not be fair on Mrs. Cole. Yeah, Mrs. Cole, the two-faced liar and snake. Naomi tells him that we'll pay more than what my father had paid, and the manager just shakes his head and tells us that his hands are tied. As Naomi's about to thank him for assisting us, I rush out the venue in tears. Tears are rolling down my face as I try to understand why Sarah would do this to me. She told me that I was like a daughter to her and she wanted to be there for me. What the heck? I stop walking because I can feel my chest starting to tighten up. When Naomi finally catches up to me, she notices that I'm struggling to breathe. She helps me sit down and tells me to count to 10 slowly, while taking deep breaths, and I do exactly that, and after 10 minutes my breathing is back to normal. I can't believe I had a panic attack. All because of this selfish, manipulative stepmother of mine. We're back at the hotel and I'm freaking out because basically we're not having a wedding. I mean, how do you have a wedding with no venue? Our guests are flying and driving in on Saturday for our wedding, but we have nowhere to host them. All the people that had paid money for their flights and accommodations will now have to try to get refunds, all because I decided to trust my selfish pig of a stepmother. Naomi tells me that we have to inform my father about this, and I tell her that there's no way my father was going to believe that his sweet, innocent wife Sarah did this intentionally. Everything was starting to make sense to me, though. Sarah did not leave the proof of payment receipt or the email documents with us that day that she came to give us the fake surprise. She knew that we would probably figure out her plan. A light bulb lights up in my mind, and I have the perfect idea. This will definitely save our wedding, but also be sweet revenge against Sarah. I quickly take my phone off the charger and dial my father's WhatsApp number since he's out of the country on a business trip. Update number 2. I can confidently say that revenge is truly sweet, especially when it's served cold. I'm on the phone with my father, asking him if he can please cancel the booking. He proceeds to ask 21 questions and is confused because Sarah told him that we loved the venue that she had picked. It takes everything inside me not to insult Sarah because I don't want my father to be suspicious and ruin my plan. I tell him that we had found a better venue and that venue that Sarah had chosen was not up to our standards. He says he understands and it's my wedding, so anything I say goes. I ask him to please not tell Sarah because I don't want to upset her, especially before the wedding. I add that me and her have been getting along very well and don't want to ruin that. My father promises not to tell her and tells me that it makes him so happy to hear that me and Sarah are getting along so well. I roll my eyes and he says that comment, but I knew that mentioning me and Sarah getting along would soften him up because that's something he has always wanted. And unfortunately, he shall never get it because I want nothing to do with that evil woman. I hate lying to my father and giving him false hope about my relationship with Sarah. It's making me feel guilty, but I have to do this. Sarah needs to learn her lesson and understand that evil actions have embarrassing consequences. The next day, we're back at the venue and my father had managed to cancel the booking and emailed us the cancellation email. We show this to the manager and he informs us that he's aware that the luncheon booking had been canceled. I ask him if we can book our wedding to replace the luncheon booking. He tells us that if we can pay for the venue today, then we can definitely book it for Saturday. Luckily, my father had been able to send us half of the money needed for the booking. Then me and Naomi would use our own savings to pay for the other half. I give the manager my card and the payment goes through. I sigh in relief. Our wedding is still on. It's the day of the wedding and I'm getting dressed with my bridesmaids in my dressing room, which is at the wedding venue, by the way. There's a knock on the door and I answer. It's one of the ladies that work here at the venue and she informs me that there's a lady by the reception demanding to see me. I already know that it's my stepmother, and I decide to go see her that she does not scare away my guest. And I put on a gown and head to the reception. I see Sarah and she immediately rushes over to me fuming with anger. She asks me what the heck's going on, and I just stare at her with a dumb look, with this facial expression. She repeats her question and I simply shake my head. What's making me so angry and just shows me that this lady truly wanted to cancel my wedding and throw a stupid tea party instead was the fact that she was dressed in a tea party outfit and clearly not cocktail dress attire, because this is what was written on the invitation. Since we had decided on a night-theme wedding, we told our guests to just dress in formal cocktail attire, and what Sarah wasn't wearing wasn't even close to that. I don't understand how she could possibly live with herself to not only lie to me and Naomi, but most importantly, my father. Her husband? How was she going to explain all this to him? Actually, I don't even want to know because if her plan had worked, then I would not be getting married today. A couple of ladies enter the venue and Sarah freezes. I notice that they're all dressed up in tea party outfits. An evil idea crosses my mind and I smirk at Sarah. I walk towards the ladies and flash a big ol' smile at them. I greet them and they greet me back. One of them recognizes and asks me where's Sarah because they had been invited to a luncheon that would be hosted by her. I acted shocked and tell them that's impossible because this venue was booked for my wedding, which is today. The ladies look at each other in confusion, and the same lady takes out her phone and shows me the invitation Sarah had sent them. I tell her that maybe Sarah had confused the dates, but there's no luncheon happening today because my father booked the venue for the whole day and night. I notice that the ladies start to get flustered and angry, and I look over my shoulder and see that Sarah's trying to avoid the ladies, and because I'm such a good-loving stepdaughter, I point out Sarah and tell the ladies to go clear this misunderstanding with her. She's right there. So they immediately rush over to her and she's unable to run away. They start asking her questions which she's unable to answer, and one of the ladies tells Sarah that she had wasted their money and, well, because they flew all the way here for this luncheon, and even booked accommodation so they would arrive on time. To be spiteful, I intervene in the conversation and say that it looks like Sarah must have been fooling them all because she knew that I was getting married on this very specific date. Sarah tells me to shut up. However, the ladies all agree with my statement and start throwing insults at Sarah. Wow. They tell her that if she does not pay them back all the money that they had to use for flights, accommodations, and whatnot, they're going to sue her. Sarah gasps in shock and pleads for them to not sue. She explains that this was just a big misunderstanding, but the ladies stick their words, and the ladies tell her that she has 1 week to pay them back. And, well, they all start walking off and leaving me and Sarah in the hallway. I giggle and leave Sarah by herself as I head back to my dressing room. As I'm about to open the door to my dressing room, Sarah grabs me by the arm and, well, pushes me back. Luckily, I don't fall backwards. Because, well, I see the anger in her eyes. I tell her that she needs to leave right now, or I'm calling security. She tells me that she will not be paying back those ladies, but I will be paying them back because this is all my fault. I laugh in her face and tell her that I will not be doing such. She proceeds to tell me that I'm such a spoiled brat and that I simply have no morals. I ask her, why did she act like she wanted to help plan my wedding when all along she just wanted to cancel it? She tells me that she was doing me a favor because this wedding was clothed in sin. She continues to say that God will punish me and Naomi because what we're doing is sinful, and she simply can't believe that my father even wanted to be a part of such nonsense. At this point, I glare at her, and I'm not even angry anymore. I'm actually hurt by her words. How dare she say all these hurtful, mean things? She tells me that my father spoils me too much, and that if she had known that I was going to turn out to be disgusting and sinful, she would have gotten pregnant so that my father could have a normal child. I don't know what comes over me, but I just slap her right across the face. She stumbles a bit and gasps in shock, and I tell her to leave, and she tells me that she's not going anywhere because her husband paid for this venue. On cue, my father appears and he looks deeply disappointed. Sarah runs to his side and tells him that I slapped her for absolutely no reason, and she just came here to try to help me with the dress since that's what a mother would do. I shake my head, and I look at my father. He looks at me, and then he looks at Sarah and tells Sarah to get out of here. Sarah looks at him in shock, and I'm also shocked. My father proceeds to tell us that he heard everything, and he's disgusted by Sarah's actions, that he can't believe that he actually married a woman with such an evil heart. Sarah tries to plead with him, but he puts his hands up and tells her he doesn't want to hear anything she has to say. This causes her to flip, because she starts throwing these insults at my father, calling him a fake Christian and a sinner for even accepting my sinful ways, and she also starts insulting me by calling me all sorts of names and telling me that she never liked me. She only tolerated me because I was my father's child, and she's glad that I'm not her biological daughter because I am an embarrassment. My father tells her to simply shut up. My friends come out in the dressing room and inform us that they had called security because they heard shouting outside the room. Sarah tells us that she's not going anywhere, and the security guards arrive, and my father tells them to simply escort Sarah out. She's not allowed to come back in. At first, Sarah tries to resist, but eventually they drag her out. She screams at us and tells us that we'll pay for embarrassing her like this. I just shake my head and thank my father for always being by my side. He apologizes to me and promises that nothing more will go wrong today because it's my special day. I hug him and head back into my dressing room to await the day. Well, to be honest with you guys, I don't even understand how OP's stepmother could think that she's going to get away with this plan. I mean, don't you think that on the day of the wedding, it all would have came out anyways? I mean, come on, this lady had a little less marbles than the average person. I'm just glad that the father, OP's dad, came through in the end and kicked her to the curb. But I would like to hear from you guys what exactly you thought about this, so drop your comments down below. Would you have handled it any differently, or do you think OP did the right plays? Let's talk about it in the comment section. If you guys are new to the channel, take a second and hit that subscribe button just so you don't miss any future videos. I hope you guys have a fantastic day, and I'll catch you in the next one. See ya!